402-560-6197. Assuring excellence in every situation, opportunity, and challenge. That's 402-560-6197.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Coppell Chevrolet GMC, the number one fastest growing GMC dealer in the Omaha and Lincoln area. We are going to keep this train rolling in a big way with new half-ton and 4x4 pickup trucks starting at $12,500 off list price or 0% financing. You heard that right, $12,500 off list price or 0% financing. You pick which one works better for you. Please stop on in the dealership and meet the team or check us out at coppellcars.com. Stock number C280930. All deals with approved credit.
In every office, there's two types of people. There are those who bring in bagels and those who eat the bagels that someone else brought in. Everybody likes the first person. Be that first person. Weekday mornings at 7:30, you have a chance to win a business box of bagels from Bagels & Joe. All you have to do is shut up, Sipple. 2 questions for you, 2 for Sip. Win, and the bagels are yours. Lose, well, you don't want to lose.
You lost Monday, you lost Wednesday, you're a loser.
Shut up, Sipple. Weekday mornings at 7:30, brought to you by Bagels & Joe.
January is your reset button. This January 10th, Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping in Lincoln is kicking off our 10-week challenge. We combine high-energy kickboxing, powerful strength training, and simple, proven nutrition to deliver real results in just 10 weeks. For a limited time, get $150 off when you enroll today. No gimmicks, just coaching, accountability, and a community that pushes you to win. Spots are limited, so don't wait. Visit fxblincoln.com and start your strongest year yet at Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping. 2 locations, South 40th and Yankee Hill, North 70th and Vine. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping, changing lives 10 weeks at a time.
This is your year to win way more than bragging rights. At Warhorse Casino, your love of the game could earn you serious cash. The Pro Football Frenzy is free to play with cash prizes all season long, like up to $1,000 weekly, with your chance at $1 million. All while earning tier points and comp points every time you place a sports bet. Only at Warhorse Casino. Wagers may only be placed on Nebraska-based teams when played outside the state of Nebraska. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Gambling problem? Call 1-833-BET-OVER.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth. 93.7 The Ticket.
Tune in to Outside the Box from 4 to 5 p.m. for everything you need to know about the Lincoln Stars. Join head coach Rocky Russo and play-by-play voice Alex Fern as they sit down with special player guests to tell the story of the Lincoln Stars and give you all the news and notes you need from around the USHL. That's Outside the Box with the Lincoln Stars on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Live from the heart of Lincoln, America, welcome to Ticket Weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome in. Arizona's on the 1s and 2s. This is Ticket Weeknights. Going to go solo here. We have no DeMornay Piersonell and, of course, the boss man, DP, getting ready to take care of some business on his own. So tomorrow, we will have Nick Weidman. If you haven't heard his voice yet, he's been helping out with Ticket Weeknights and a lot of our production work, along with a lot of our great crew here at 93.7 The Ticket. So if you haven't heard him, he will be joining me tomorrow to help and fill that late night spot. So we'll still keep it till midnight for you guys, at least for tomorrow. Tonight, do a little bit of testing here. If you're watching the stream, don't panic. It looks a little bit different. It's still not quite done, but we want to up the quality of a lot of our streaming services. So if you're looking at it right now and it looks different, it's supposed to look different, although it is not the quote-unquote finished product. So I appreciate you guys working with me in the meantime. What I really want to dive into is, of course, some more NFL playoffs. I think that's the bread and the butter that most people I'm aware of are excited for. And if you guys are watching the streams, I will just go ahead and ask you, let me know if the audio sounds fine. If the audio does not sound great, I would love to know so that way we can figure it out. You're still welcome to chat, I believe, in these streams if you want to via X, YouTube, Facebook, Allo, Cable. Obviously, you're not allowed to type in the chats on Allo Cable, but all the other streams you can. And if you notice any streaming issues, feel free to let me know. I'm more than welcome to take a look at it when I have the time to do so to make sure that we're, actually upping the quality of our stuff and not me just telling you we are. I'd like to double down on doing that. All right. If you're listening with me and Raph, we talked a lot on college football, and how insane the transfer portal has gotten and how insane the money's gotten. You have agents who, without naming names, I feel like I know one guy that I definitely saw it happen, and I don't want to give the name out for obvious reasons. But I feel like you see people, and they're telling these college student athletes that, hey, go hit the portal. X school wants you, or this school will give you this much money. I think not all, maybe not a lot, but maybe it is a lot. I think there's agents out there that are just giving these kids horrible advice. They're telling these kids, like, hey, go transfer. I see X, Y, and Z for you. If you go here, it'll be great. There's way more abilities to go market yourself. And, like, my fear is that a big chunk of those agents don't really care, and they just want the 13% commission or the 15%. And there's horror stories out there. There's like some dudes out there charging like 20+% commission, which is outrageous for a student athlete who actually put in the time and effort to become that skilled at said sport, and for an agent to come out there and charge you that much for not doing anything. A lot of times, I mean, sometimes these guys are like 4 or 5-star athletes. Yeah, an agent's great to help you get through the paperwork, but a school was going to find them. The agent's essentially, I guess, bargaining for you, getting as much money as possible, but at the same time, that agent's bargaining for themselves. If he gets X amount of your NIL deal, well, he's going to want to make that NIL deal as big as possible. It's just not good for college sports. Kids getting paid money is not the problem. It's how these kids are getting told to go get the money, or instructed, or by agents, or by coaches, or by universities. I was talking to Raph before. I think the grossest thing to me right now is you have these these foreign players that will go play professional within their country or another country over in Europe. Europe's got a pro circuit to where if you're good, you won't go to college. You'll play pro early. And then those guys have been playing pro ball. Your Luka Doncic's of the world. That's what he essentially did. Then they go to the NBA. And then, harder than I want, let me go back to college basketball, because now you can make a lot of money on top of it. So they just go back. That's like Luka Doncic going to the NBA after what he did in Lithuania. I want to say he's a Lithuania kid. Maybe Serbia, but I want to say it's definitely Lithuania. And then he goes down there, has a great season, but like he's like, you know what? Yeah, I had a great season. I can really milk it, though. If I go to college, I can be unstoppable. And that's essentially what some of these people are doing. And then you have coaches recruiting them, trying to get them to come to their school. And they're not technically doing anything wrong, but it kind of just goes back to the adults in the room. What are they doing? Yeah, maybe it's not the best decision for the kid, and some people might find it a little bit shameful to kind of go about it that way and not fully respect the process. But for the adults in the room to tell the kid, the agent to tell the kid, the coach, that's where you start crossing a line. And that's why this thing's gotten so far out of control. You have kids going to 5 universities. Fine. To Ron's point, who texted in earlier, Rink Mast went to 2 schools. He went to Bradley, got a degree at Bradley. And now I think he's going for, what did he say here? I'm going to refer to Ron's text again because it was a great text. Yeah, he said he got a bachelor's degree in physics from Bradley, which, by the way, a physics degree, nothing to scoff at. Well done, Rink Mast. And is now currently working on a master's in applied science. And he says the smart ones take advantage. He's 100% right. And that's where hopefully you have enough responsible adults to point the kids into making smart decisions, not pointing kids into making rushed decisions because whatever said adult wants a certain result or a certain amount of income sooner than later. So, luckily for Nebraska, I will say, I feel like they haven't been pointing kids in a wild goose chase just to try to get as much money as possible so they can benefit. I feel like Matt Rule has not been poaching players the way that maybe, I don't know what a good example of that would be. You could say UCLA poached Nico Iamaleava out of Tennessee right before the season started, but technically it was legal. The Damon Williams situation's complicated. You could say LSU was poaching him because he didn't even announce hitting the portal. Let's see. Unknown Dexter 1000. I haven't seen anything about where Dylan Raiola is going. Is he going to Oregon? Have you guys heard anything? Surprisingly enough, no. Nothing. I don't know what the story is behind that, if there is any. If he's just playing it slow, playing it patient. But it seems like a lot of these other quarterbacks are moving fast. He is hurt. I'd imagine that's hurting his draft stock. I'm not going to sit here and just like start beating up on Dylan Raiola and say, of course not. He's not that good. No, I think he's good. I think the things that are probably hurting him is the injury and whatever, how much NIL he was demanding, he might have to come down for that. And whatever, whatever you think the situation is with Dominic Raiola, if he's a big part of it, if he's a little part of it, I've never heard anything of like concrete evidence that like he's a problem. So I don't think I want to factor that in there whatsoever. I'd imagine that the injury is hurting him right now. And then you got to figure out for Dylan Raiola, how much was he getting at Nebraska? How much are you willing to come down from? Because I do think it's fair to say, although he had some great moments here, I think he was not as good as people had hoped for. Now, not as good doesn't mean it was all on his fault either. Obviously, we had some major pass protection issues. We had Satterfield in here who didn't want to run Emmett Johnson at all, despite, I think last year we all knew that, hey, between Dante Dowdle and Emmett Johnson, I think Emmett Johnson might be the better of the two backs. And instead they would use Dante Dowdle to go between the 20 to 20. And then when they got into the red zones, 20 yards in or 25 yards in, then they put in Emmett Johnson as if he was the bruiser. So that just like made zero sense whatsoever. But you bring in Dana Holgerson, and now you kind of get a new fix of that run game, but you're still struggling to protect the quarterback on pass protection. And then you get a new special teams coordinator, which fixed things a lot, but then you lose Tony White. So despite having a special teams who can get you the ball in better field position, you kind of have a defense that's struggling to set your special teams up. It was just kind of interesting. I don't think he played as good as people wanted, but I think everything else around him was a little bit more disappointing than people were expecting. So you can't put it all on Dylan Raiola. But yeah, I haven't heard anything. You guys are welcome. If you got breaking news on Dylan Raiola, I'm more than happy to find out about it. I was thinking schools like Oregon. This was never confirmed, but that was the name people kept throwing out there. Arizona State was another one people kept throwing out there. You can pick a few schools now as these openings keep happening up. Maybe another school wants to replace him. I think the Oregon one makes sense a little bit for the fact that with Dante Moore, you don't know. If Dante Moore goes to the NFL, maybe the Dylan Raiola conversation becomes a lot more serious, and we start hearing some real murmurs that, yeah, Oregon's interested in putting a payment down on Dylan Raiola to get him over to their campus. Until Dante Moore's gone, though, it makes sense that they haven't heard much on it. If you're Oregon, why would you be paying Dante Moore right now with being unsure if he's going to go to the NFL or not, and then already bring in Dylan Raiola? If Dante Moore decides to come back, you got a weird problem on your hands. You got two quarterbacks who you're paying a ton of NIL to. Now, I don't think they're ever going to put themselves in that situation, but all that to say, that's what they're most likely waiting for, is Oregon's case. If they're waiting for Dylan Raiola at all, again, there's like nothing confirmed, but if they were waiting on Dylan Raiola, they got to figure out what Dante Moore, the current quarterback there, wants to do. That's my only read on it. Like I said, I haven't heard anything. Kind of surprising. I thought he'd be one of the hot names in there. We can talk about quickly before we do get to the NFL playoffs a little bit more on just everything that's kind of going down with the transfer portal in Nebraska's case. I believe the last time I checked, Nebraska got quite a few guys in here. Nothing great. Maybe a couple of 4 stars. Not a massive room. Hasn't changed at all. Okay, it does not look like it has changed at all, which isn't anything too bad. Last ones I saw were Hawthorne, of course, linebacker. Yeah, we're still sitting at 7. So, Will Hawthorne, quickly, just to run through for any of you guys who are unaware of everyone. We'll do this before we get to the NFL. Will Hawthorne, he is a linebacker out of Iowa State, transferring to Nebraska. Dwayne McDougall, safety. He is from San Diego State. 3-star. Dexton Foster, a linebacker. I'm glad we picked up some linebackers. I think we all kind of saw that group. We were really young. Certainly, if we had a few of those upperclassmen go down or need some breathers, and then contain was a problem all year. Not always on the outside linebackers' fault, but we need to up that room for sure. Dexton Foster, a 3-star out of Oregon State. Owen Chambliss, he is a 3-star out of San Diego State. So you did have a couple of guys at defense with Owen Chambliss and Dwayne McDougall following Ulrich out of there. And then you have obviously the big one, the quarterback, the one that everyone's been talking about, Anthony Colandrea. Calandria, I'm not so sold as everyone else. And I want to be sold. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's not going to work. I'm just not as sold on him as everybody else. Again, I know that people turned a massive script on Dylan Raiola for whatever reason and thought Dylan Raiola sucked or wasn't good or is a complete liability because he can't run the ball. Listen, I don't think he was as bad as people were saying. That's all I'm going to say out there. Maybe Anthony Calandria is better, and if he is, fantastic, but I'm not looking at him to save this program. If he does, great. All the credit to him. I'd love it. I would not complain if he single-handedly found a way to revive what has been not a horrible offense, but a very up-and-down offense, to say the very least. What worries me about him is I don't necessarily see a quarterback who, in his first 2 seasons, was incredibly turnover prone, and in that third season with UNLV, was not necessarily bad. He was pretty good, but a lot of it, he was scrambling against teams, and he was not playing the best competition. One of his best games last year, you could argue, was UCLA, where he had, I think, 3 touchdowns, and he didn't throw any picks in that one. That is the same best amount of wins for TJ Lateef. So to put that all in the mix, the guy that we got in there for the transfer was Calandria. His best win, in my opinion, was the UCLA team. That is the best win that TJ Lateef has to offer as well. And if everyone's out on TJ Lateef, I think it is important to remember that after UCLA, he had to start the year on the road, technically in his hometown because it was in California, in LA. But then he has to go face a very, very good Penn State team. And despite what everyone might have thought at one point in time, Penn State still had all the 4- and 5-star talent that was there before James Franklin got fired. Then he has to follow that one up with, as much as it kills me to say, one of the better Iowa teams that we've seen in a very long time. Whether we're at home or on the road, that Iowa team was significantly better at offense than I think a lot of people wanted to give him credit, especially as we got later into the season. And then you follow that up with number 15, Utah. So I'm not fully there to give total judgment on TJ Lateef and his performance this year, because he had one defense that was lackluster in UCLA, and a lot of people thought he played just about perfect, and they couldn't believe how he hadn't played in games prior. Then he gets 3 tough opponents, and it felt like a lot of people were just out on him already. Now, if the argument is you just want him to have some more competition, fair enough, but when you bring in that competition, does anybody honestly think that Calandria is not going to take over TJ Lateef's spot if you're paying him that type of money, which I'm assuming he's, I could be wrong in this. I don't have the sheets in front of me. $1 million? I wish it was 1,000. That'd be a lot cheaper. But $1 million, $2 million at the absolute most. I'd be kind of shell shocked if he's getting paid that amount of money. So if you're paying a guy like that over $1 million, there's no way that you can honestly tell yourself that it's going to be a fair competition battle. I think the most you can do is it's his job to lose. They'll come out to the press conferences and I'm sure say it's a competition, which in all truth, it is somewhat of a competition. He just can't lose it. But like that is kind of the TJ Lateef, you're not quite there yet. And with Calandria, again, I just think it's a little bit funny. Their 2 best wins are the same team, UCLA. And they played QBR-wise just about as efficiently. And then you got a little bit more help at the offensive lineman. You got a guy in Brendan Black, and then you got Tree Boblade to fill in some gaps. Interior offensive lineman, and then a outside tackle. So, on the bright side, they did find a quarterback, whether you are super high on him and what he did for the 2 years at Virginia, and then, of course, the 1 year down there at UNLV, where he by far had his best season with UNLV. You get some help with linemen, which I think it's probably the number 2 thing that everyone wants when they go into the transfer portal. It's not an easy thing to go and find not just linemen, but linemen with some actual talent, linemen that have gotten some experience and some reps. We were, I think, pretty fortunate to get Spindler out of Notre Dame last year. And as much as people, want to be upset with pass protection, I think we noticed a significant uptick in being able to block in the run game. And that absolutely happens when you bring in some veteran presence. I'm sorry for always bringing my Chicago Bears into the mix, but you saw that with Thuney. And they brought in future Hall of Famer Joe Thuney to the Chicago Bears. There isn't a ton of new faces on that offensive line. There is 2 significant new faces, some guys that have been developing for a while. And then, of course, they'll run a lot more tight end sets. When you got Cole Kmet, and obviously they go draft Colston Loveland. But you're seeing an offensive line that took significant strides for what everyone wanted to call the worst offensive line last year, for a quarterback in Caleb Williams who was sacked more than anybody else in the NFL last year, who had a really gross number when you look at the amount of times he was pressured, the amount of times he was sacked. But then you also saw how long he was holding on to the ball. So it wasn't all on that offensive line. But then you go bring in Joe Thuney. And one thing that has certainly taken off is, Caleb Williams has gotten smarter with the ball. So now if the line makes a mistake on pass pro, he'll get rid of it as opposed to taking the sack. On top of, they've just gotten better. So he's got a little bit more time in there. But what's really taken off is that run game. You see him, Monangai and Swift, it's like a two-headed monster. Either one of those guys can run for over 100 yards. And you'll see that in some of these games where the offensive line just becomes unstoppable to the point where they're getting to the second level really easy. There was some times with Nebraska, I don't know if it was all Spindler that we can credit for, but I think he certainly brought some leadership in the room where you were seeing that offensive line actually move some guys and get the run game going. And Emmett Johnson, we finally had a guy break over 1,000 yards. He becomes an All-American, all Big Ten first team, and rightfully so. So you have to remember some of these things when you're going into the offensive line. Maybe you want a bunch of new guys and a bunch of 5-stars. They're really tough to get. And I think it's important that if you can just go find some guys who have had reps, decent reps, that, not your guys that you pull out of Alabama who maybe were brought out of high school with a bunch of stars, but they've been sitting on the sideline and they haven't played even a sniff on the field. And nobody knows why, but usually you got a pretty good idea. Obviously, they're either A, not competitive enough, there's eligibility issues, or they don't love football as much as they say they do. And especially in the era of NIL, you got to be a little extra careful about what guys are you bringing in. If you're just going to bring in these highly touted players with a bunch of stars, we've seen some of those guys come here to Nebraska without dropping names. They haven't played great. Some of them played really bad. Some of them made you scratch your head and say, how much were we supposedly paying this guy? So you got to be careful with it. But 7 guys out of the portal to Nebraska. We'll probably see a little bit more to come here. You got the quarterback, you got 2 offensive linemen, you got 3 linebackers, a safety, and I know I'm missing one, an interior offensive tackle as well. So with that being said, we'll throw out the break here. We'll talk about the NFL playoffs. The NFL playoff picture is official, and that starts up this weekend. And some of it starts off on streaming as well, which is a little bit frustrating. So we'll kind of tell you where you can watch some of these games as well for that first round. All right, don't go anywhere. We'll throw out the break. Appreciate you guys listening. This is 93.7 The Ticket. Harrison Arns going solo. Got 2 more segments left on the other side. You guys are always welcome to join in via the Starter Heyman text line or any of these streams. Again, stream it on a different platform. If you're unfamiliar with it, you can go ahead. Let me know if the audio sounds weird or if something's not working. I would definitely appreciate to know. All right, don't go anywhere. 2 more segments. Like I said, 93.7 The Ticket, ticketfm.com.
Rico here with HIS Auto Care at 70th and Van Dorn, letting you know HIS is a great place to bring your vehicle for service. With superior service bumper to bumper, we'll treat your vehicle like it's your mother's. Doesn't get any better than that. So call 402-488-8934 and HIS Auto will make you glad you did. 5% off, mention this ad, and for sure your mother will be proud you called. 402-488-8934, HIS Auto Care, 70th and Van Dorn. God bless you.
Empire Netting and Fence delivers top-quality netting and fence solutions. From major sports venues to backyard installs and everything in between, coast to coast. We take on tough jobs with grit, integrity, and a strong commitment to safety. Empire is growing, and we're hiring motivated people ready to grow with us. We build each other up, and we're building something big. Think you've got what it takes? Apply now at empire-fence.com. That's empire-fence.com.
When you were a kid, clubs were cool. Robotics club and space club and stuff like that. But what do adults get? Book clubs and quilting clubs? Nah, forget that. How about margarita clubs and old-fashioned clubs? Get to Upside Bar and Lounge for the best clubs in town. Try all 10 varieties of Upside margaritas or old fashions and take home a free souvenir glass. Grab the whole crew and pair it with taco night on Mondays or whiskey Wednesdays. Upside Bar and Lounge at 29th and Pine Lake.
Select Plumbing and Utility has been serving Lincoln and the surrounding area for 14 years, and they're not slowing down. Select Plumbing and Utility handles all your plumbing needs from faucets and water heaters to full renovations, and they can even help with your heating and cooling needs. They're also Lincoln's underground experts, repairing and replacing broken underground water and sewer lines since day one. Contact Select Plumbing and Utility today at 402-560-6197, assuring excellence in every situation, opportunity, and challenge. That's 402-560-6197. At Parkview Animal Hospital in Lincoln, it's not just their professional care that sets them apart, but their warm staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Whether it's for a routine checkup or a comprehensive medical procedure, at Parkview, your pet isn't just another number, but a valued member of their caring family. Visit them at pahlincoln.com today and in person just south of 14th and Pine Lake Road. Parkview Animal Hospital, your pet, their passion for happier, healthier, furry friends. Bauer Underground has been serving local contractors and utility contractors all across the state since 1997. When you see the black and white trucks, you know that the best workers in the business have arrived. Bauer is currently looking for equipment operators, laborers, diesel mechanics, and aerial linemen. Join the brotherhood built on hard work, authentic people, and a pedigree of success. They're offering top-notch benefits, a matching 401k, and a $600 per year clothing allowance. Bauer Underground, a family-friendly company with plenty of room for advancement.
With UBT, you've got total control over your money. Like Doug, who runs his game day tailgate like a well-oiled machine.
I got burgers, brats, chicken, dogs, plus all the fixins'. And with the UBT Go app, I can track my food spending from anywhere.
Pro move.
They don't call me Grill Sergeant for nothing.
No matter your goals, UBT helps you feel good about reaching them. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Want to quit tobacco? You don't have to do it alone. The Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line can help you quit any type of tobacco. We offer professional coaches to help you create a personalized quit plan with an online community to support you along the way. Plus, we'll connect you to resources like medications to help you quit, so you have everything you need to become tobacco-free. Quit with confidence. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired in association with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de The Alzheimer's Association y The Ad Council.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Planet Fitness has everything you need to start strong, so you can give everything you've got. From plate-loaded strength equipment and functional training areas to treadmills, stair climbers, and free weights. Our equipment is best in class, and our clubs are right around the corner, so you can make this your strongest year yet. Join the club today and save $28 or more when you join for $1 down, $15 a month. Cancel anytime. Deal ends Friday, January 9th. Are you coming? Planet Fitness. We're all strong on this planet. See Club for details.
Nutrition Authority presents Fusion 30, an ultra-premium protein ideal for anyone wanting to look, feel, and perform their best. Fusion 30 can only be found at Nutrition Authority. Stop in today for a free sample, visit with a certified nutritionist, and get better than internet pricing. For store info, visit mynutritionauthority.com.
Back to the Ticket weeknights on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
right, welcome back in. Harrison Arns on the ones and twos, going solo, or at least I was for a little bit, until I had to make a phone call to get one of our other producers, Nick Wyman, on the phone. I believe we got our phone situation fixed, so without better way to do it, bring in one of our own sports guys here. Nick Wyman, can you hear me on 93.7 The Ticket? Well, this might be unfortunate. I may have spoke too soon. If you guys can hear Nick on the text line, let me know. 402-464-5685. Maybe it's just on my own board here. But I am still currently unable to hear the phone callers, which is a bit of a problem right there. So if you guys are listening, I'd appreciate it. Just text in. Again, 402-464-5685. I'll let my guy Nick go, as we're just unable to get his voice still through my headset. So with that being said, I'll just talk a little bit NFL solo here until we get to the next break. If you're listening with me and Nick earlier, we did kind of preview some of it. There's some really interesting games in here. Obviously, your number one seeds for the AFC is the Broncos, and the NFC is the Seahawks. Both those teams get a bye, and they get to hang out. They don't got to do anything this weekend. They got to wait for everyone else to try to make their way through the wild card. The 2 seed is going up against the 7 seed, the Patriots and the Chargers. And these are all in the AFC. Then you got the number 3 Jaguars facing the number 6 Bills, and the number 4 Steelers facing the number 5 Texans. The AFC gives you a sick feeling in your stomach. I don't think anyone has a really good idea on who their favorite would be in this one. You like the Patriots, but when you look at their strength of schedule, which isn't always the fair argument, you play who is on your schedule. They didn't play a lot of teams that were over 500. They played a lot of bad teams. Teams that maybe they started out hot, but they showed who they really were towards the end of the season. That's kind of been their luck all year. It's not all luck. You have to beat the teams on your schedule, like I said. But they seriously have not played a very tough schedule whatsoever. I mean, if we just go through some of the games that these guys have played, you'll kind of put it together. So they start off the season with a game versus the... I got that right. Yeah, the Dolphins, not the Giants. Preseason was the Giants. They start a game with the Dolphins. We all know how their season turned out. They win that one. Then they beat the Jets. Ravens was a good win. You'll take that. They lose to the Bills. They beat the Giants. They beat the Bengals. They get the Jets again. They get the Buccaneers, who at one point in time, I think everyone thought the Buccaneers were going to be a serious contender. And it just ended up not being the case. They lost 7 of their last 8 to end the season. And then they move on to the Falcons. Falcons, with Michael Penix Jr. at that time, they were struggling. They were a lot better once they got in Kirk Cousins. But I think if you look at the Falcons in that time period, it's no surprise that they win that game either. Then they get the Browns, the Titans, the Saints, a good win versus the Bills that I won't scoff on, the Panthers, then they lose to the Steelers, they beat the Dolphins, and then they lose to the Raiders. That is not the most impressive schedule. Now, it's impressive because you beat who's on your schedule, but again, their best wins are the Ravens, who they beat once, maybe a Falcons team when they're still playing Michael Penix Jr., and the Panthers. Those are seriously their 3 best wins without me just trying to poo-poo on their season. It's an incredible regular season record. I just want to point out there, like, that season was not fraudulent. I hate using that terminology because, again, you beat who you have to play, but it's not necessarily overly impressive when you really break down. I think when you go to the NFL strength of schedules, they are by far and away had the easiest schedule. The Jaguars and Bills, this is one where you could, I think I'm only in with just who's hot. The Jaguars have been just on a crazy run to finish the year. Nobody had these guys at a 13-4 record to finish the year. And it wasn't necessarily always pretty. There was a little bit in the middle of the season where you're wondering if they were going to fall apart because they had the Texans and a very good Texans team middle of the season when their defense was starting to get hot, and they lose by 1 score. They bounce back with a win versus the Raiders, but they win that game by 1 point. So I think you start to feel a little bit unsure about that Raiders squad. Then they lose to the Rams. Then they lose to the Seahawks. 2 very good teams, but they beat the Chiefs, 49ers, Texans, lose to the Bengals. Joe Burrow was back, and then they beat the Panthers. I mean, that is just a really great run for a team who, again, Trevor Lawrence, I think a lot of people already throw on the tile. Liam Cohn, you can make a serious argument that he is the NFL Coach of the Year. When there's the running back, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, you weren't quite sure what you're going to have out there at the wide receiver room. Not overly impressive in the run game last year, whether you thought it was the running backs or you thought it was the offensive line. That team just got clicking on all cylinders, and Liam Cohen deserves a lot of credit for it. You could go with Ben Johnson, obviously the Chicago Bears head coach, for that award. You could go with Liam Cohen, who's done a phenomenal job with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think deservingly so. Or Mike Vrabel with the Patriots. But again, I just kind of pointed out that Patriots schedule. Nothing to take away from them. But I think when you look at all the teams that the Jaguars had to play, and for those guys to be hanging on to the number 3 seed in the AFC is a huge statement. When you look at how troubled they were last year. And then, of course, the Steelers and the Texans. This one's just a defensive battle. The Steelers kind of squeaked their way in there with a thanks to a missed field goal by the rookie kicker for the Baltimore Ravens. It was a home game for the Steelers, so maybe that noise got to the rookie a little bit there, but I don't think any team's really scared of these Steelers. Aaron Rodgers hasn't looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers as much as people may have wanted them to look. And the Texans' defense is good. You're kind of banking on C.J. Stroud. And I think if you think C.J. Stroud can go ahead and be that guy, you're probably going to roll with the Texans. Because the Steelers on offense, like I said, with Rodgers, you're not scared. Defense, they're good, not elite. One game over their typical 9-8. You're not overly impressed there. And of course, your Broncos are the number 1 seed. And I think if you're looking for a defensive matchup, like whoever ends up in that Broncos, it's going to be Steelers versus Broncos or Texans versus Broncos once we get to that divisional round. And that is going to be January 16th, 17th weekend. That's going to be a lot of defense. With that being said, we'll go ahead and take a little bit of an early break here so I can get to the NFC, spend a full segment on it before I go ahead and get out of here. So don't go anywhere. This is, of course, Take a Weeknights Going Solo. Harrison Earns on the 1s and 2s. Appreciate you guys listening. I'll be back in just a little bit.
Looking for a financial partner that truly makes a difference? Modern Woodmen is a member-owned fraternal financial services organization. We can help you plan for all stages of life, from protection to saving to retirement. We also offer member benefits, social activities, and volunteer opportunities to help your family and community.
I'm Sean Erickson, your Modern Woodmen representative in Lincoln. Call me at 402-483-6515 to start the conversation.
Modern Woodmen of America, touching lives, securing futures.
Way up there where the sun comes up under the big red sky, I do life the way I love, with family by my side. I feel home with me, no matter where I go.
Proud of where we're from, excited for where we're going. Pinnacle Bank, the way banking should be. Member FDIC.
At Parkview Animal Hospital in Lincoln, it's not just their professional care that sets them apart, but their warm staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Whether it's for a routine checkup or a comprehensive medical procedure, at Parkview, your pet isn't just another number, but a valued member of their caring family. Visit them at PAHLincoln.com today and in person just south of 14th and Pine Lake Road. Parkview Animal Hospital, your pet, their passion for happier, healthier, furry friends.
Oh my God.
Hey,
Good
it's me,
man.
your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving.
Check test
I know
1,
you
2.
think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving.
Testing the phone line 1, 2, 3.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Hog Wild has a delicious way for you to enjoy beef brisket. It's our open-faced hot beef sandwich. We start with our grilled Texas toast. Add a scoop of creamy mashed potatoes. Load them up with some tender Hog Wild beef brisket and top it off with our tasty brown gravy. It's absolutely delicious. Hog Wild Pit Barbecue, 3210 Cornhusker Highway in Lincoln.
But don't be late, we close at 8.
Rick Heyman here from Sartor Heyman Jewelers. I want to personally thank our great customers for voting us once again the best of Lincoln. At the same time, we're celebrating our 120th year in business in the great state of Nebraska. You can count on Sartor Heyman for the very best quality, value, and customer service. When it comes to your jewelry needs, visit us at South Point, Grand Island, and the Outlet in downtown Lincoln. Visit us today at SartorHeyman.com, and thank you for your continued trust after all these years.
Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket immediately after every Nebraska men's basketball game for 1 hour of post-game recap.
The Nebraska Basketball Postgame Show is sponsored by Union Bank and Trust, John Henry's Plumbing, Heating, Air, and Electric.
And turn on the phone mic.
It's on.
Say it again. It's on, right? I know the talk. So
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Check 1 2 3 1 2. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Check 1 2 1 2 3. Hello, 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 hello.
I can't hear anything. All right, welcome back in. Ticket Weeknights, Harrison Arns on the 1s and 2s. Still got one more segment to go here before I go ahead and wrap things up, so we can do a little bit of testing back here at the Ticket Studios. If you're listening over the break, you probably heard me talking along with our ticket tech, Eric, saying testing, 1, 2, 3, testing multiple times. Don't worry about it. It's us. Just trying to give you the best quality content. And we got to test this stuff late at night to make sure that we're giving you guys what you need. So we can set you up for those next shows in the morning, all the way to the afternoon, all the way till we're back through midnight once again. As I mentioned, just still talking some NFL playoffs before I go ahead and wrap things up here so we can continue to test out our equipment. Let's get to the NFC playoffs. I went through the AFC on the first one. Of course, it is your Broncos at the 1. In the NFC, it's your Seattle Seahawks at the 1. Sam Darnold, the guy that me and Demarne Piersonell have been praising really nonstop when he was with the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold was a phenomenal player. He was doing stuff that Kirk Cousins hadn't even done. Like when you're just talking about him statistically and what he was able to do with that offense, coming into it really at a unexpected moment, and people were down on him before he started playing, and you know, he really turned his career around. And then you think, okay, well, that's obviously Kevin O'Connell with the Minnesota Vikings. That is more of the coach than it is us wanting to credit, Sam Darnold. Well, then he goes to the Seahawks. And like I just said, your number 1 seed in the NFC is your Seattle Seahawks, who had to beat out the Rams, who a lot of people were saying the Rams, Stafford, he should be your MVP favorite. And I'm not saying anything against that. Maybe he still is the MVP favorite, but just shows you how good the Seahawks were, and that it was always Sam Darnold. It was, yes, Kevin O'Connell probably deserves some credit. Yes, the Seahawks coaching staff probably deserves a lot of credit. You know who deserves a ton of credit? Is Sam Darnold. He's done this back-to-back years now. Vikings, no one believed it. Even this team. The Vikings didn't believe him twice over. It's incredible the Vikings didn't bring him back. I know that you can make the argument you want to bring in J.J. McCarthy, who I honestly don't think is bad, as people want to say he is. But you had an awesome guy in Sam Darnold, and he absolutely proved it to you. And you decided to move on anyways. So just a little bit of surprising elements right there that I did not fully understand with the Vikings, why they moved on from them. The Vikings are out of the playoffs and the Chicago Bears aren't. Or excuse me, not the Chicago Bears. The Vikings are out of the playoffs and the Seattle Seahawks aren't. J.J. McCarthy was not great this season. He had some moments, but I don't think he necessarily sold anyone a ton of confidence. Maybe a little bit, not a ton. Sam Darnold, he gave you a ton of confidence in that one season with the Vikings when he was given the ability to play within a good offense under a good head coach. And with J.J. McCarthy, I think he's got maybe some confidence issues. Or maybe it just took a little bit of time to figure out with Kevin O'Connell what he wanted that offense to look like and how to operate under him. But it just hasn't looked the same. Down the stretch was his kind of best moments where he was a little bit more assertive. He didn't seem as passive. He wasn't just kind of holding onto the ball, hoping not to throw an interception, which early on, it felt like a lot of that. He was having some games where he just looked like he was only going to hit the check down because he had a few interceptions and he was worried about that being a possibility again. Not saying he can't pan out. I'm just saying you had Sam Darnold. Your number 2 seed, the Chicago Bears. My Chicago Bears, I'm going to keep it short on it because you guys have seen it twice already. They got a rematch with the Packers. It's going to be Saturday. Should be a snowy game. Should be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be not just snowy, like a potential blizzard game. So I'm going to have all the feels of a classic old school rivalry. You got two teams with open stadiums that are known for being cold places to play. It is the NFC North, and that one should be a lot of fun. I don't feel great about the Packers or the Bears. It's a rivalry game. We just saw the Steelers and Ravens rivalry game to get into the playoffs. This one will be the start of the wild card for Saturday. I believe so, right? No, apologies. You got Panthers and Rams as well that day, and I think that one's beforehand. So you'll get a couple Saturday games before you get to that January 11th Eagles and 49ers game. Eagles, 3 seed, 49ers, it's a 6 seed. Right when you think the 49ers are going to be your Super Bowl favorites, they need to get one more game to go ahead and clinch it. And they would get to host all the way to the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl is in San Francisco this year. They choke. They don't get the win. After just looking like one of the better offenses you've seen in the second to last week of the NFL regular season. As a result, they now get slated with the number 3 Eagles as opposed to getting that 1 seed bye. And I think that bye is huge because if you go look, I mean, if you're the Seahawks, yes, you might have to draw the Rams, but there's also a fluke chance that you get the Panthers. And if you want to scoff at the idea that the Panthers aren't going to beat the Los Angeles Rams, that was right when the Rams kind of fell off of Super Bowl favorite conversation. Everyone was super high on the Rams and Stafford as an MVP favorite up until Bryce Young and the Panthers figured out a way to take down what everyone thought was the clear Super Bowl favorite. After seeing the Kansas City Chiefs struggle, after seeing the Baltimore Ravens struggle, really impressive work. Incredible stuff. So don't count that one out yet. That's a classic Rocky quote. No one believes in them. They don't have anything. If they don't have anything to lose, they're dangerous. Panthers don't have anything to lose, which is crazy. They're sitting there as the higher seed, which again, nobody had on their paper, but no one's going to favor them either. So I do think despite being higher seed, they're going to play some tough football. I like that sneaky matchup a lot. And if you're the Seahawks, you're just kind of hoping and praying that you can somehow draw the Panthers as opposed to the Rams. That is the current playoff picture. No Chiefs, no Ravens. Bills are sitting there as a 6 seed. Your Broncos are the 1 seed in the AFC. Your Seahawks are the 1 seed in the NFC. And what a bizarre year. The Chicago Bears somehow won the NFC North. The Buccaneers, who everyone thought that Baker Mayfield was going to be that MVP favorite, cooled off. And then when his team would end up losing 7 of the next 8 games before they get a close to the regular season. This has been one of the most tumultuous years in the NFL that I've been alive for. You can obviously give me years in the past where the NFL has been anything but predictable. This is the first time in a long time, though I've seen a league that's truly gone sideways. Teams like the Chiefs, I'm not worried about. I think they will reload. I know there's plenty of Chiefs fans in this area. That is not a team that I'm sweating for. I think they'll have the ability to get back, right? Listen, when you got Andy Reid and you got Patrick Mahomes, much people might be sick of that duo. They're good. They just got to tweak a few things, and I think they'll be right back into it next year. The Eagles, this year could be interesting. If they come together at the right time, who knows if this sets up a dynasty. If the Eagles find a way to win another Super Bowl, your drama issues with A.J. Brown go out the window. Who cares? You're winning Super Bowls. I think he's going to be happy and not necessarily care about his weekly numbers nearly as much as maybe he did this year. They have somehow managed to stay together despite what a lot of people have been kind of looking at as one of those teams to possibly implode, where the guys just stop getting along, or maybe they get tired of the coach. But they did enough, and they kept winning enough games to be sitting there at the 3 seed. And as long as they can take down the 49ers, as much as I love my Chicago Bears, I don't know if they're good enough to beat the Eagles for a second time in a row, although they did it the first time. And the Packers are banged up. I don't think the Packers stand much of a chance, not because LaFleur is a bad coach or Jordan Love can't do it. It's just about everybody else is hurt on the defense and the offense. It's just a big ask. So I think the Eagles would probably run away with that one. That's a good year. And if they could figure out, whether it's Seahawks or Rams, Panthers, if it's really crazy playoff picture, that's a pretty good window to get into the Super Bowl. You just got to beat the 49ers. I think that second round is actually a lot easier. And then whatever you get on that third round in that conference championship game, you can set yourself up for another Super Bowl. And if you get there and you win that one, who knows what's on the road for those guys and how happy they can keep that team together and maybe get some of those guys like A.J. Brown to kind of see the bigger picture at times. It's been interesting to see him be upset despite winning in some of these games. It's been weird to see Saquon Barkley's numbers not be elite, but they're still winning in all of these games. They're figuring out ways to win despite not having such a dominant offense as they did last year. And then, of course, I think it's fair to just point out the Patriots before we get out of here. The Patriots just came right back on track. No surprises there. They lose Tom Brady. They're searching in the quarterback hunt for a little bit. They can't figure something out. They bring in a guy named Drake May and Mike Vrabel, and all of a sudden they're sitting there at the number 2 seed, just barely missing the number 1 seed as a whole. Just incredible stuff to what they've done. That is your NFL playoff picture. Apologize for being a little bit rambly on it. We're doing some testing in the middle of me doing these live shows here, but plenty of fun games ahead, and it all starts this weekend. You got some potential Blizzard games. You got a lot of just unexpected teams as well, as we mentioned. Your Panthers, your Jaguars, your Patriots, your Texans. Texans, I should say. Maybe people expected, but my Chicago Bears, I know a lot of people didn't. And again, you got some real juggernauts on the outside looking in that not a lot of people definitely could have predicted. That is going to wrap it up for me, though. Appreciate everyone listening. I'm Harrison Arns, and enjoy the rest of your night. We'll be back tomorrow, 6 a.m. with early break. We will take this last hour off to make sure that we got all of our equipment working properly. Appreciate you listening. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here on 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com.